But in order to get the benefits, you have to pass, right? Yeah. If you live past your term, it's POM, right? It's not a good or bad thing, it's just situational. And I'm going to show you how it can be a good thing for you. Permanent or whole life is you own it. So you're like a homeowner. And the key difference there is this cash value in terms of your building equity. So the longer you stay with that policy, if you can envision, who's the homeowners in the room? Okay, do you understand, and again, I don't mean to put anybody on the spot, I'm just checking myself, the terminology equity. Yes. Okay, which means?
Which means that the certain part you're paying off your home, and that part belongs to you. Your house is $450,000, right? And you've been paying your premiums, and they're taking out the payments that actually pay for your house itself. That is your equity that's growing.
Awesome, perfect, right? Cash value, right? Which means your home is now more valuable to you than it is to the bank, right? So on the right side, same thing with a permanent or whole life policy. And this is where you can build a college fund. This is where you can build a retirement plan, right? Because it grows over time, right? And so these are your living benefits. So some people say, oh, I only like term, right? Because that's all they understand, which is reasonable. Some people say, I only want permanent or whole life because I want the cash value. But like some of you in the room, you can do a combination. And when I say that, as a homeowner, I'm a homeowner, you can take a term policy and just use it in case something happens. That term policy will protect my mortgage if I die, okay? So for example, maybe my house is valued at $500,000. I might take out a $500,000 policy term because there's a cost difference too. Term is normally less expensive than a whole life policy because you don't have the cash value building up, right? So some people will say, I want term because it's less. I'm okay with that. It's whatever your goals are. But I might take term as a homeowner in case something happens to me. I know the house is paid off, right? Versus a combination of using whole life to build cash value for my family, right? For my retirement, right? The beauty of the living benefits is you can use it as like it's your personal bank. You can take a loan against it. You can use it as collateral. You don't have to go to the bank and fill out an application, have an excellent credit score, debt ratio to income, right? You basically call and you say, I have a need for, how much do I have in my cash value? We'll let you know, and then you can say, I want to take out whatever. No credit application, no credit scores. It's your money. You're taking a loan against yourself, but then keep in mind that when you do that, your death benefit goes down, right? So on the right side, you have not only living benefits, but you have the death benefit too. And I have some handouts here, but I can email it to folks who want more information on that. Any questions on this part? Did this help? Okay, I try to simplify this part because this is the part I didn't know for years. And now I know, I'm like, oh wow, that was easy, right? General rule of thumb, the question, how much life insurance do I need? General rule is 7 times your annual gross income. So as an example, if your gross is $50,000, maybe this is saying if you would need $350,000 in coverage, but it really comes down to your individual needs. Because what we look at is your assets. If you have $500,000 in assets that we have to protect, then $500,000 would be your nugget, right? Maybe it's less than 7 times, but this is a general rule of thumb. So just kind of reviewing a needs analysis, if you can think back to the slide with the pyramid. In a discussion, we would talk about when you pass, how much do you need to cover those expenses so that your family doesn't have to worry about it. Child care, mortgage, pay off your debt, so on and so forth. We subtract your assets, so we add up everything, all your expenses, we take a look at your assets, and then we look at the gap. Where's the gap? Do we have to cover more? Are you good? If you're good, then it's like, amen, right? You're doing a good job, right? Keep going with what you're doing. If there's a gap, that's what we would look at. Okay? And then before I go on to the next slide, I failed to mention, one of the areas I'd also like to educate on is, when you think of insurance, do you think of it as an expense or an asset? Anybody care? Expense?
Expense.
Expense.
It's
Both, okay. And the reason we think it's an expense, anyone care to share?
So you pay it.
Gotta pay it.
Yes, you pay it.
It's a great opportunity for a discussion. Because if I go back to this slide, it is an expense in that you're paying out something, right, every month, right? But you get value back at some point in time. Whether it's a whole life where you get it back while you're living, or a death benefit where somebody gets it back after you pass, there's a value that's associated with that. So I would ask you to maybe do a mind shift and consider it to be an asset. And that becomes more valuable when you see it that way. Because when you look at your expenses, your utilities, your phone bill, your electric bill, it's an expense, it's a true expense. When you pay it, it's gone. You don't ever see money back, any value back, right? You just hope to keep the lights on. In this realm, there is a value that you get back, whether you're living or after you pass. Okay? So that's why sometimes a combination is great, if that's the perfect thing for you. Make sense? This is just a quick snapshot. If we were to take a look at your current income, and what we like to do is project. If you tell me, Paula, I want to retire by the age of 65, I would say, okay, where are you today, and how much money do you need to have to take care of you when you're 65? So as a quick snapshot, and this is assuming a 5% annual increase in earnings, which is not necessarily happening these days, and including inflation. So let's say 45, age 45, currently making $2,000 a month. By the time you're 65, projected earnings is $833,000, which means we would take a look at that at retirement. Do we need to protect that going forward? Go back to the sliding ball, right? Do you want to keep your standard of living? Do you just expect it to go down? Do you want it to go up? All of those discussions. So all of this ties together. Health insurance, I'm not going to spend any time on that because it is what it is. We have health insurance either through our employer. You know, we may pay for some of it or not any of it. As far as life insurance, the association between life and health is, in order to get a life insurance policy, the qualification is age and health. Okay? Not to say if you're not younger, you won't get qualified, but it affects your premium, your monthly premium. So your health might be an issue, it might not be an issue, but that's just what we take a look at. You know, so we take a snapshot and we say, okay, this is what you qualify for. Okay. So I always encourage the young ones in the room. You're pretty young to me. I had some teens. I had some teens in my class yesterday, which I was really excited about because it's good for them. They think, you know, you just graduated, right? It's like, I don't want to think about this. But it's important when you can qualify at a younger age, healthier, right? It's like that. It goes really fast. And that qualification stays with you for the rest of your life, right? So if you get a select preferred, which is the highest rating you can get, you're golden, right? So, disability statistics show that 40% of people age 45 will suffer a disability of at least 3 months before the age of 65. I know people right now who are on disability. You know, they're having a hard time. They didn't protect themselves, so they're just getting small paycheck. What did they have to do? They have to go into their retirement, their 401. Right? Also replaces up to 60% of your wages. So not 60%, up to 60%, depending on your situation. Long-term care. How many of us have discussions about long-term care?
Sorry, Dawn, that's what you
Oh, I was going to pick on you. No,
Sorry, raise my hand just because
But it won't be on there.
How many of us think that we're going to live a really long time? How many of us want to live a long time? You're not sure. Okay. The reason I personally think we're going to live longer than we used to is because of medical technology, right? It's keeping us alive longer. And I don't have the information now, but we do another seminar on that discussion, and it's wrapped up into a whole retirement diversification. But it will show, statistics will show that our kupuna, for example, my kupuna, worked 30 years, up to age 65, they retired, and then in most cases they lived to the age of 75. So they worked 30 years, their money lasted 10 years. For the most part, they were okay, right? But now, the younger generation, they want to wait till the age of 25 to work, and probably because of school, they have more educational opportunities. But they also want to retire younger. So they want to work less, like maybe 20, 25 years, but we're living till the age of 90, 95. So what happens from the age of 65 to 99? We got a 30-year spread that we didn't plan on, right? So this is why I like to spend time on long-term care. Most health insurance doesn't cover it. If you have Medicare, it may cover a portion of it, but not all of it. So how are you going to get the money to take care of yourself or your kupuna, right? One other fact that is known is the cost of long-term care is increasing as we speak because there's more people living longer. Drive around any streets in Honolulu and you will see all these long-term care facilities. There's a new one being built right next to Kaiser in Moanalua. Why? Because the need is greater than it was 10, 15 years ago, right? They have to pay for that, right? It costs a lot of money. It's based on your needs. It's based on the quality of living that you want to have when you're in a care home or when you're in your family home, but maybe you want to bring a healthcare provider into your home. You can decide that quality that you're looking for and how much you want to pay for that on a daily basis. Last month, when I was working on a case in Hawaii specifically, the cost is $391 a day for long-term care. Yeah, that's the same response I get from everybody. It's a lot, and it's not going down. Big industry. So again, it provides the coverage based on your individual needs. This is a key part. It reduces the family concerns about finding money to cover care. Yes?
Sorry, is it possible to get this kind, so is this a type of insurance?
Yes.
And is it possible to get this for your parents, or you can only get it for yourself?
We can talk about getting that, protecting someone else, right? And that would be a family discussion that we would have, yeah. Based on what they qualify for, right? Because it all depends on the age too, yeah. Yeah, so I just wanted to touch on the second bullet, which is, you know, have the discussion. If we're not having it, I would encourage you. Only because it does affect the whole family. I had a gentleman I sat with last week. He's the only income producer. His father, you know, healthcare. They're trying to decide what to do right now. And then I get a call this week that this gentleman who's the only income producer, who is going to help take care of the father, he got hurt on the job, right? So my first question is like, what's happening to the family, right? So you never know. That's the thing, we don't know. And by no means do I mean to scare anyone. It's really just to have that really thought-provoking discussion. Retirement planning, also another key area. How much will you need? And you know, we want to look at setting up a disciplined approach. Sources of retirement income that we're used to is Social Security, employer-sponsored plans, 401k, 403b, whatever, you know, whoever your employer is, they have their own version of it. And your own personal savings, whether you have stocks, annuities, savings. So we look at all of that in planning for retirement, right? One thing we know about Social Security Administration, how many of you get these? Social Security statement. When was the last time you got one?
Well, it's like three years ago or something.
2010.
Okay, 2 years ago.
Yeah. They don't send them out anymore.
No, how come?
It's too expensive. So you can go online and look for it and find out what your current situation is from a Social Security perspective. But what I'd like to cover is Social Security was never intended to be the only source of income for retirement. So for some people that's an aha, right? Because we grow up thinking, oh, when I retire, I get Social Security, no problem, right? Anybody watch the news about what's happening with Social Security? Well, let me ask, how many of you think you'll have Social Security when you retire? I think I might have a little.
I might have.
Yeah, I don't know, but I might. I'm hopeful. Okay. How many of you have seen the stories about a request to maybe increase the retirement age? I think they said 72 was what I heard, and lower the amount of distribution, right? So that's a reality, right? So the maximum Social Security benefit is, at full retirement, is about $23.46 a month. And there's limits on, how the benefits are reduced and are taxed. But this small box is what was interesting to me, and this is from the Social Security Administration. It says, without changes, quote, by 2041, the Social Security Trust Fund will be exhausted, and there will be enough money to pay only 75 cents on the dollar, right? So all that hard work, I've been working 30 years, paying, it's like, oh, I don't know what's gonna happen when I retire, right? So I find that to be an interesting fact because that's out of our control.
I got questions on
Sure.
Social Security, and it may not even pertain to this class, but you work all your life putting in Social Security. You might get 60. What happens to your Social Security?
Yeah.
So therefore, why is there no funds with all these people not collecting?
Does it-
I have the same question.
Your
Social Security doesn't go to beneficiaries.
I'm sorry?
You cannot pass that. It's Social Security.
You can. I'm not a Social Security expert, okay, so I just want to qualify that. But that's why I want to encourage you to go online and look at your statement, because it will describe how much you get, like in my statement, what happens to me when I retire, how much I get, how much my spouse will get, if I pass, how much my beneficiaries will be eligible, so on and so forth. All of that is on the statement, and you want to be informed about that kind of stuff. I would encourage you to be informed about that type of information, because it affects your whole financial plan, right? It could be a crack in your foundation. If you thought you were expecting $2,000 a month from Social Security, and when you retire, it's only $1,600. Where's that $400 going to come from? Right? The other thing that's happened over time, and some of us are living this, pension used to be another big part of our retirement, right? Work for a company, we get Social Security, and we get pension. Not necessarily the case today, or you might get less than what you thought you would be getting in your pension. So only 22% of today's workforce has access to a defined benefit pension plan. I also help people take a look at their pension and what it's going to look like when they retire. Fewer employer contributions. Companies are having a hard time. It's the reality, right? So they're looking at every aspect of their business on where they can cut costs, where they can move costs, or expenses, I should say, to somewhere else, right? So it comes back to the individual, right? So they're cutting the pension plans, maybe not matching as much as 401 used to match, right? So where does that come? It comes back to us. There's also maybe some limitations on contributions in terms of how much you can put in. It's 10 o'clock, so, it's not, okay. I gotta hurry up here. I'm gonna run through this really quick. In terms of retirement, the questions are, how much will I need when I retire? More importantly, how much will I have? And how much do I need to save to cover that shortfall again? And again, where should I put my money and how will it be affected by taxes? This we kind of touched on. I want to go through this illustration really quickly. This is a tax diversification illustration. And we're going to take a retirement income of $90,000. What we may be used to is the left side, right? Put money into our 401k, and it's tax deferred. You feel good about that, right? You should feel good about it, right? you're putting money away, you're not touching it. But because it's deferred, when you pull it out, it's 100% taxable, right? Uncle Sam's gonna get his money at some point in time. So of that $90,000, say you're at a 25% tax bracket, you will end up paying $22,500 in taxes when you take that money. So in your pocket, you'll have $67,500. On the right side is another strategy that we talk about in New York Life, and it's a tax diversification strategy. On the left side, we're going to split the $90,000 into two portions. The left side in this side is $45,000 you put into your 401k. Now what we suggest is go ahead and put, take the match, right? Because that's free money your employer is matching. Take it, right? But if you're overfunding, that money's just sitting there. So we suggest, how about you move that money over to what we talked about, cash value, right? Because it's going to work for you. It's not going to sit over an account and just, pull over, right, just sitting there. So if we were to split it, $45,000, same situation as the side on the right, it's taxable because you deferred your taxes. When you take it out though, because it's a lower amount, it may be a lower tax bracket. So your taxes are going to be less, right? $6,750. If you move the other half into a cash value insurance-like policy, which you own, which stays with you, you control it, you've already paid the taxes, right? We're in a tax season right now. Taxes are pretty low compared to what they were in the 60s, 70s. I mean, back then it was like in the 70s, as high as 70 tax brackets, and there were more tax brackets, right? So if you go ahead and pay the taxes up, because again, it goes back to the foundation. We're trying to make sure there's no cracks. Estate planning, real quick. Think about this, it's important. I'm not an expert in this area, but I would encourage you to have the thought process or the discussion about wills, your beneficiaries, again, your funeral expenses, all of that. Unfortunately, my brother passed a year ago. He was only 54, very young, right? But he went pretty fast, and I helped my sister-in-law with her funeral expenses. Oh my God, the costs were just outrageous. I could not believe it. Just couldn't believe it. You have your funeral costs and then your burial costs. So it's not one, it's two separate. I was like, oh my God. So if you're if you had a crystal ball, what would you do if you lived a long time? If you die next week, would you think about buying term insurance to make sure your family is covered? Investments, if everything was golden, would you put every nickel into it? We don't know. That's the problem. We don't know. But what you do want to have is control over your financial situation. You don't want to lose principal, and you definitely don't want to lose sleep. Once you take care of this, I know my clients, it's like they don't have to worry about it. And I have ongoing discussions with them because life changes, right? Questions I'll leave you with. What do you like about where your money is? What would you change if you could? And if you knew 10 years ago what you know today, what would you have done differently? So much. Knowledge is power, and that's why I share this type of knowledge. It makes you powerful in your decision-making process. It makes you powerful as a wahine, as someone who worries about your family, our community, right? It's a very compelling discussion that I came to learn, and that's why I share it. Action is powerful. We can have knowledge, right, with anything, but if we don't do anything with it, it's just knowledge. It just sits up here. So the goal is to take action. And if you would just hang on for a second, just gonna see if someone else is. I actually have one of my clients who's sitting outside, and she was going to share how she was able to take action to protect her 7-year-old boy, and he knows her because they went to school together. But she's a single parent. She's a Hawaiian and Samoan. She's a business owner, and she has a 7-year-old son, right? So it was her compelling reason to take the next step was her son, to protect him. So that's what we did. We started this college funding, and that's the one priority that's always top of mind for her. So I have some information here. You're more than welcome to help yourself. If you have some last minute questions, we have about 5 minutes. I have to break down because there's another session coming in, but if you would also fill in the feedback forms, I would appreciate that. Any questions or comments?
I have just one quick question.
Sure.
When you split the 90,000 into 45.5 and the 45 on the right is zero tax, what about the equity? Do you have
The
to pay
growth
taxes?
you will
Yeah.
pay on, but it's the growth on that amount going forward, right?
Right.
So it's not-
So it's just the amount
Just
that,
the growth part.
right, right.
Yeah,
Like
so
you
if your
would need-
45,000 grows 5%, right?
So you need to pay taxes on that?
Yes.
Okay, that's it.
Because remember, Uncle Sam takes what he needs to take, right? Well, thank you, mahalo. Have a great day. It will be a beautiful conference.